see. And we're live also on our YouTube and our Facebook. How's everyone doing out there, Facebook friends? Thank you for joining me on the YouTube channel. Why don't you go down below and subscribe to the leader and also ring that bell so you can get notifications when I am online. And if you don't mind, Facebook people, why don't you become a subscriber? You've been a follower. Aborigines be in search of their heritage. And that's what we're talking about today. And we are trying to bring this to some closure because we're coming up on the end of Black History Month. And we want to make sure that everyone gets their research in there to research their heritage. Now, we've been talking all year long about indigenous Aboriginals. There's been arguments, confrontations, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I am your host. I am Omi Inca 7 Zanu. And for those of you who don't know me, I welcome the newcomers. For those old friends who have been straggling over the fence, I'm going to suggest that you follow the leader and subscribe. And tell a friend about your Omi. Tell them about I discuss everything, and including sometime my own personal business. I don't think I could be real unless I was discussing who I was and the problems that beset me. You wouldn't want to follow me or be a friend if you thought I was a phony, but I'm real. I can be touched, reach out and touch somebody's hand because I am real and I'm talking about somebody else's business. And I don't have time to talk about nobody else's business. I got too much of my own to talk about. And we're talking about who are we and what do we call ourselves and who do the people say that we are? Who do the people say that we are? Oh, you admire my new dude? Oh, yes, I had to get myself ready. Yes, guys, getting ready to go back on the stage. I got to get all beautiful up because, see, when you're on the stage, you become somebody that you're not. And while I'm sitting here in my home, it's okay to be myself with my braids all over my head. And I want to thank y'all for letting me be myself in the flesh with long, wavy hair. And I hope you admire because I did it just for y'all. So you wouldn't have to be pickaninny counting the braids that's on my head that has little antennas. So we're doing something different because we got to get our mug shots together so I can talk about going back into music. So I got to get my image together, my brand together. And some of you might not have heard me, but I talked about the French Creole music. Our family used to do a lot of Creole music. I'm learning the standards and understanding how that folk music goes because I think it needs to be represented. And as I study my heritage, I'm learning more about those Creoles, the Seminole French Indians. Yes, that's who we be. We are right here in the diaspora, right here on Turtle Island. Who are we? And who do we come here to be? Yes, I know a lot of us came over on ships, but some of us were already here. And my family, after holding my uncle hostage, I made him tell me, who are we? And my uncle sat down and he told me that we were French Indians and we were part of the Geechee tribe, part of the Creole. Now, people usually say Cajun, but most of the time you're either Cajun or you're Creole. Now, Cajun, I never really found out the real gist of it, but what I'm saying to you is that you've got to get in on this month and finding out your heritage. You know, I sent you out an actual brochure that would allow you to go to the Indian Bureau to find out how do you determine the quantum of blood. The census actually a Dow's number. Some of them didn't because the freedmen's didn't have a Dow's number. The freedmen Native Americans Americans, I want you to know there's two different kind of Native Americans, and we're not natives, we're indigenous to this land. Natives are the ones that came over from the Bering Strait, and that's why you see them with the fair skin and long silky hair and straight hair. Now, because of the climate they were in, they were not the original indigenous. They didn't get what we have. They were natives. They actually came over across the Bering Strait, and they are what you call part white and part native. And they actually got their Dow's number because they paid for their $5 to become a Native American. While a lot of us were under the Freedmen's Bureau, we were free Africans who were actually being held by the natives. We were actually being held as their slaves because some of us were runaway, and that's why they called us Seminole Indians, because we were runaway. And because we were runaway, some of us did not realize that being a runaway meant that the Indians could actually possess us, and they could actually say that we were owned by them. Now, I know you know that there was a treaty that went forth, and the treaty was a treaty between the actual Indians. Well, there were the actual slaves, the free slaves, who were staying with the Indians, and the Indians were told to give us land, give us access to the tribal membership, and to give us $150 and 160 acres of land. This is what the treaty reads. But those Indians said no. The Seminole Indians even said no. They refused to give us any money or land. So we became landless. And they're still talking about how that treaty was 1865 treaty, I think it was, that was across, because there may be an opportunity for them to address this treaty that was broken and appeal it. And if that treaty can be appealed, we must. And for student loans to be forgiven, as well as students to be able to enter college free of charge. These are some of the benefits that these natives have been getting. They've also been getting the benefits of their free Medicare and Medicaid. Now, even though they complain about their living conditions and where they live, they still don't pay taxes. And a lot of them are addicted, removed out of the home. So they pretty much destroyed themselves. But these are not us. Those are what you call the Mongoloid natives. Say that with me, Mongoloid natives, not the indigenous people who were black. We were black. And they didn't have to say black because indigenous means black, indigenous to the land. Now, these Mongoloid Native Americans tribe, and Mongoloid tribes got all of the benefits, and we were not entitled to any. So I continued to search for my heritage. And do you know why? Because my mother side of the matriarch, and I said patriotic before, but I mean matriarch, indicates that her father was Shang Lily. He was one of the head of the chiefs there who was bestowed the name of Shang. But they must have come into contact and became mulattoes through the infiltration of the Spanish and the French. So a number of my family were actually mulattoes. My mother was a mulatto and her brothers and sisters. And some of them were passing as Creoles who actually were selling an actual hunt to go into North Carolina and to find my whereabouts of where my grandmother lived. I found her on the census, Lizzie Lilly, and she and her husband, Edward Lilly, who they had bestowed the name of Shang to. I found them on the Census Bureau. So I know I can go into North Carolina and find out where she was. Now, it's very important that I should know where my family's from. I was adopted. So upon being adopted, I had to be introduced to my mother, but I did meet my father. My mother was who I never met. I only had pictures of her and no real experiences other than the ones that my uncle painted for me. My uncle made sure that I stayed in the search of who my people were. He told us that we were indigenous people. He also reported to the newspaper who we were. He wanted the world to know that he was an indigenous person and that he was a part of the Creole, the French Indian Seminole. And I've been on a search for those people. And I know in Charleston, South Carolina, or North Carolina, they are going to have a gathering of the Creoles. And they're going to invite them there to talk about reconnecting. Now we know that the Geechee Gullah people, they reconnect to Sierra Leone because they came from it. But history means that it's everyone's history. But as we come to a close on Black History Month, we definitely need to look into who we are and just what are we doing here and why do we need to find out who we are. Let me see if I can invite some people in here and let them know that we are having something here. Maybe we can get them in. I did not call them earlier, but I will try to see if I can call some of them now. Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about, do we continue to search for our heritage? And what is the point in searching for our heritage? We used to claim that we were African Americans, but we cannot go back to Africa and go to the health department and ask for our birth certificate. Nobody has documentation in Africa of us. Someone, Mr. Calloway mentioned that, and he is so right. Because when you get your health records and birth certificate, you must go to the county that you were born in. We were not born in a county of Africa, most of us, so we could not even get any birth records if we went there today. So that stops us in our tracks from trying to trace ourselves to Africa. And to be honest with you, most of the Africans think that you want something from them. And most of them don't want to align themselves with you, and that's unfortunate. So if we be here on Turtle Island, I think we should use this time wisely to look here in the United States and track our birth records and pull our records from the health department and go to the Indians Bureau to see if there's anybody on the list that had an actual Dow's number. Now, I know that more than 90% of the Blacks that are here on Turtle Island have a quantum of Native blood in them. It's no doubt because the majority of the Africans that were free here on Turtle Island, they resided with the indigenous Black people, and they resided with the indigenous Native indigenous Black Aboriginal, not the Native Americans. No, we were not with those who had the straight hair and fair skin. We were with those that were Black, and we connected with them and we fought in a war with them in the Seminole wars that they had. The main thing we have to keep searching for is to get some documentation, because there was a joke made about the fact that they would not tell African Americans that they were a part of the treaty. They wanted to lie to us and tell us that we had to prove the blood quantum, that we had a certain percentage of blood in order to get some of the benefits. Now, we're fighting for benefits now because the majority of us are living below the poverty level, and we're looking at the fact that we must get some wealth. And the only way we can get some wealth, we had generation gaps of poverty. And because a lot of people lost their homes, which is valuable, they lost their pensions, which is valuable, and it put a lot of people in a way that you would never believe, where they had no generation wealth to pass on. So I am all for you researching your heritage to establish your blood quantum, Native American blood, or your indigenous blood, should I say. I am all for each and every one of us being able to gather documentation. I sent out a package to everyone in our group that actually were interested. Well, I sent it out to as many as I could, over 50. And it's a package of information you can look on your site that actually tells you the process of proving your indigenous quantum, blood quantum. And you can follow those instructions because they come from the Indians Bureau. Now, I want to say for the record that when you are adopted and you don't know your parents or you don't know your mother, you might have one or two family members who you are. Well, my uncle sat down more than once, and he actually adopted me as his beneficiary. So he made sure that I stayed close by him to learn who my people were. And he told me that it was very important that I should know who my people were. And he was so right, because just like having, a history, it's just like growing up without a history. But it's very vital that you should search in every direction for your people to find out where they were, and to also know who you are. Now, I know I put up a pretty good argument about that we were still Africans, and as badly as I wanted to be Africans because we look so much alike, then we have to look at the history to this. Maybe we were a made people that were created, that were already here, that didn't come over on ships and didn't come over on cargo. So we must understand that some of us were indigenous people here who were occupying and who were working and who had jobs and profession. And we weren't all of those people that, let me fix this for a minute. We weren't all those people who were on the ships, because they could not accommodate all of us on those ships. And a number of us never was on those ships at all. And I certainly believe that my family was one of them that wasn't, because my uncle was passing. He was literally passing, and he said he was passing because he was mulatto, and that during that time it was better to be a mulatto than it was to be a Negro. Negroes were slain, they were beaten, and they were killed. But if he could pass on his fair skin and get a job or get something to eat, then he would take advantage of that. I know. But nevertheless, we're Geechees, and we have Black, we have French blood and Spanish blood and mulatto blood from the French. Now, should we constantly be working hard to find our heritage? And what must we do to look for our heritage? You must look in every place you can and try to reunite. Some of us are headed off to North Carolina and the South Carolina and to Charleston. Charleston is erecting in South Carolina, and a number of people are going to that Black Museum, and they can go online now and access the Black Museum. And because the Black Museum is available to us online, there's a lot of history we can gather from that. Now, as I said, that not knowing my mother, not having a chance to speak directly to her about her matriarchic side, I did spend a lot of time talking to my great uncle, who lived to be 100 years old. I walked and talked with him, my Uncle Sam, and then my Uncle George, who lived to be 92 years old. I walked and talked with him. So they had plenty of information to give me to keep me in touch with who I was. Since I was the youngest child, they all wanted me to know who my mother was and who I was. So they kept her alive in my eyes, and they gave me her personal things so that I could identify with her. But what would even be better if I can travel to the town where she grew up at and where her mother lived and find out something about the family itself and who they were in the community. I plan to do that. I plan to make my trip to North Carolina. I want to go to the Charleston Museum, the museum they have there for African Americans. I want to visit that museum and see what kind of history they have in those records. Now, a large portion of us have even gone to the point of creating research. I have a website that I've set up under Lilly Institute for African American Genealogy, meaning that all of the research that I find on my family, on my matriarchic side, I want to collect that information and set it up on the website for my family members to go and visit and to collectively take part in. I have started the website, and the website is up, but as far as some of the materials that I need for that website, I'm going to have to keep researching so I can gather that information and I can use that information to help me to understand just who I am and which heritage did I come from. I so badly wanted to be a part of the Africans so that we could have a lineage, and their ways were not our ways. And some of our ways are higher than their ways, and some of theirs are higher than ours. But it's very important that we know where we started off here in Turtle Island and where we began to start our journey. And I'm starting my journey right there in North Carolina, where my grandmother's records were. And I can pull those records and I can begin to see just who she was. What did she do as a townswoman? What was her husband's responsibility? And how did she raise my mother? And under what type of supervision? And what did my mother do there in that town? Did my mother go to any particular high school? Can I find her records? Do I know who these people are? And does the townspeople know who they are? You go back and you'll be really surprised to find out that not only will you find records, but you'll find unclaimed benefits, and you'll find unclaimed materials that the church is holding on to. You might want to go to the church to see if the church has any records. If that person attended church, usually they kept the baptism records. And it's very vital that we should get a very good handle on this indigenous thing, not because we're looking to get reparation out of it, but because they're going to court right now on this treaty. And there should be plenty of platforms to address these problems so that we can have speakeasies on what's going on with the appeal, what level they're at, and it will give us some type of momentum for fighting for this appeal to go through. Because if this appeal goes through, it will be better than reparation. It will be like going back to correct the records that should have been corrected a long time ago. Because anytime everyone else have received their benefits and they have withheld ours, we have to be very careful that they do not transition us into immigrants. We are non-immigrants, and we must continue to say that. We did not come over here on ships, so the immigrants can be challenged to go back to their birthland. But we don't have records of even residing in Africa, so we cannot be those immigrants that they think that they can ship back across the water. We must be very careful not to keep saying that we want to go back to establish ourselves in Africa. They're trying to get rid of people these days, and they will surely oblige you and send you back. Not necessarily that someone's waiting there for you. You might have to fight for that land that they claim they promised us. But it's very vital that we should get an understanding that Black people are searching everywhere for their indigenous self. And they are finding out that there was indigenous to this land. So this land belongs to us. We are allowing others to reside on our land without having a deed or having access to the title. And they are staying in our property illegally. And to let the truth be told, the Indians were told to, well, they didn't have to be told. The Indians know that we came before them. These so-called Native Americans must know we came before them. We were here before they came. They were the ones, like Christopher Columbus, who came over from the Bering Strait. We were already here occupying. So they came over and interfered with our land. So how did they get control of the land? Who gave it to them? Because they were the fair-skinned people. The white folks made it their business to hand them that land and give them a treaty where they can control it, controlling the casinos and the oil on that land and everything. So can you imagine how much they owe us? They owe us for the land and for any money there. So we, in reality, have been overdue for a long time. But for those of you who might be searching for your patriotic mothers, don't give up. Keep looking. Because I know my mother would want me to continue to look, to find out her whereabouts and how she grew up, and to find out about my grandmother and how my grandfather became a part of the Seminole Indians. They would want us to find these things. So I'm asking the ancestors to unturn every lock and unturn every brick or rock that may be covering up the visibility of finding out who these Aboriginal indigenous people were and who the Seminole Creole people were, and giving better understanding of how we can lock arms with them today and can be a part of the celebration that they're holding for the people that came from those climates. It's very vital that you should know that we as a Black people have been misplaced for a long time. That is why we have been so disturbed by what is going on. We've been very passive and we've been shuffled around quite a bit. It's time that we stop being shuffled around and that we began to realize that we are the mothers and fathers of this universe and we take control of it. But as soon as we take control of this particular Turtle Island, the sooner we can be in rulership. And it won't be very long before the baton will be handed over to us and we will be in the driver's seat. But we must get better understanding of how we are going to rule. There's a number of us who are afraid that Black folks will come in and destroy things. Well, it can't be destroyed any more than what it is, because we are trying to make sure that this time around we don't have any children that are monitoring and that are governing. And right now, the political institute will do us no good unless we're going to throw some money behind those who are in political office. If we don't have any money, we're going to have to step away from the political arena, because that is not going to do us any good. We're going to have to get in rulership through looking at this treaty. And I just gave you a little known facts about why we should continue to do this for Black History Month. And one of the things that I want you to understand is that every day must be a Black History Month for us. We must decide who our enemies will be and who our heroes will be. And we cannot let society decide that 1 month out of the year is the only month that we can become conscious about our heritage and about where we're from. But we must continue to do that on a regular basis. And I would suggest that you and the next person continues to pass on information so that we can help other people learn about themselves. Now, if anybody is in need of that particular brochure on the Indians Bureau, please do let me know. Then maybe I can shoot them a copy over and they can start the process of collecting the data. Now, we're coming up on the 9 o'clock hour. And I want to say for any of those people that are out there, we are live here in Facebook land and also on YouTube. I'd like to welcome each and every one of my old time friends by saying thank you for following the leader and saying thank you so much for going out there and subscribing. I do need your subscriptions. I don't ask you for any money. I have the website all set up now that I have posted on Facebook. And the store right now is under construction. You'll see that there are things written in description. However, we have not posted all of our African apparel. We have an African apparel store. There's also a schedule of my actual shows that I had did and the performances that I did last year. And we'll be uploading some new performances. I've gotten quite a few gigs, some salad gig that I had to turn down, wanting me to do the Black Panther and bring in the Black Panthers. I said, I don't do the Black Panther. But nevertheless, they wanted me to bring in the dancing girls to do the Black Panther. And I will be signing up to do more spoken word as well as some solo music. On that website, you can become a member, a basic member for free. But that means you can only do basic things. Now, if you become a full-fledged member, you'll pay $3 and you'll have access to downloads. So you can actually download some of the featured poems and the songs that I'm going to put up. There is also G Money. Well, let me finish telling you. And the other, you have a basic membership for $3. You have the VIP membership, and that's $3 a month. You have the VIP membership for $6, and the VIP Plus Executive for $9. And I'm sure you know that with every one of those levels, you get more of a percentage off than the other. I'm not going to even try to remember each one of the percentage, but I will say we have G Money, so you can actually collect G Money, and that is Omi's money that you can collect, and you can buy things from the store. With our affiliate, we're going to have other things in our store besides African things. The African apparel store was conceived because we wanted to help those people in Africa who were making their own products and wanted us to market them. So hopefully we'll be marketing those. We don't know just yet if they'll be putting their things on my site, but I do have an agreement from another African store that wants to sell their products for those devotees, for those AWOLs, and for those priests and priestesses for their tools. Those will be made available on our site as well. And those will be for the membership with the VIP Plus that will be able to go to the African apparel store. The African apparel store will focus in on materials that our priestess use. And then we will also have products on there for clothing. We have the God's Gear clothing, the God's Wear. And these are clothing that are fit for God. With the God with the big head, the God with the big head full of, the small God with the big head full of wisdom, which is you and I. And these were the clothes that they will be wearing, and they will have our logo on there. I do have the logo completed, and the logo is Omiinka 7 and Tribe with the crown. I wear the crown. So you'll see me with the crown, and that is our logo, the crown. And in the music logo, it talks about bringing you 7 spiritual lifelines of power, and it mentions all 7 of the levels of power. Uh-oh. Ooh. Ooh. Let me see here. Oh, had a little accident there. Sorry. Anyway, I want you to know that website, we also have the website that talks about the bios, a little bit about the membership and the store. And on that site, I will be working on some music, getting to learn a little bit about the theory and how to lay tracks, so I can use my skills to do some musical tracks. And so when you open up the website, you'll see the hand there that's working the board, but also you'll see the hand that's working the drums, showing you how far we've come, that we now can take the board and create instrumental drums, but yet we want to stay close to our physical adaptation of the djembe drums. And that's one thing we push is the drum. We started out with the drums on my introduction, and on all of my Blog Talk shows, just about that was our theme song, the djembe drums. So we're keeping that close by. You can hear any of our Blog Talk shows that I've uploaded. Right now I think we have about a dozen, and so you can go hear those free of charge, and we will be giving away some of our singles for the spoken word for the new book. Right now, you will mainly hear the actual shows from the Blog Talk. Now, we are going to have blogging. There'll be some blogging on there, and you'll be able to go to our university. As I told you, the university is the institute is Lilly Institute for African American. Did I have African American? Lilly Institute for, I don't know if I had African. I think Lilly Institute for Aboriginal, Indigious Congeniality. I think that's what it is. I'm not certain. But you can go to that website, and there's plenty of things to do. And it's like a library. So when you go there, you're going to be able to pull information and download information. I've been working for 3 years on these websites, and people, believe it or not, I can use the templates to do websites. I've gotten really good at it. I didn't even have to ask my son to do them. And I wanted him to see that I could learn how to do the templates, and how much easier would it be if I learned how to actually program. So I taught myself to do the websites, and they're not all the way up, but they are in a frame where you can see they're coming along. So take a look at them and manipulate around, knowing that the store is not open yet, so you can't buy anything in the store, so there's no shopping basket for you to go in and purchase anything. But the main thing is that we have a place to go, a platform where we can go and congregate, okay? And as I indicated before, the actual music site will be attracting solo artists, and we're looking at putting together the Creole, the summit. Well, it's called Gospel Creole Reggae, and it's a combination of genres that are being put together. And we're asking all of those poets out there, spoken word artists, to come in and register your skill, because somebody may be looking for a poet, they may be looking for a Babalaw, they may be looking for a priestess, and you want to get in on the act. Then if you're registered, they can look over your credentials and your profile, and you'll be registered, and we will give you out as a referral, and you will be on our referral list, okay? Because we need to know who are the priestess, who are doing oracle readings, and who can counsel spiritually, and who are those Babalaws that are out there. So we've started our list, and we have a few people on the list, but we want our registry to grow. And we definitely want you to be a part of this, because, you know, we can't just be on Facebook all the time. We got to go somewhere where we can have freelancers, they can find employment, they can find jobs. Yes, we know you can find jobs there on Facebook, and people do all the time. But we want to look at something that pertains to our heritage. This is where we're studying our heritage and trying to get more of ourselves. Because more we fall in love with ourselves, the better we'll become able to love others. But I want you to know this is Black History Month. Let's not forget that we are trying to establish ourselves. We're trying to be more like Aboriginals, like Indigenous Aboriginals, and we're trying to discover what did the Indigenous people do, and how must we act, and what is our class of work. And were we always here? And if we were, what was our lines of duties and our industry? Help us to be better people as we get to know more about ourselves. We're not a lost tribe. And even though we're collecting people in our tribe to make a group of people, we're not a lost tribe. We've been here all along and we haven't gone anywhere. And people, you know that after a certain time, my bedtime rolls up. So you see me kind of sleepy there. And every now and then I have to go into meditation. So since I'm on the line so often, I go right into meditation. And you probably wonder, is she out of it? Is she asleep? Oh, it's just that I have to have cat naps throughout the day. As you get older, you need those things. But it's very vital that you should know that being an indigenous people means a lot. People, and not one that's a Johnny come lately, always lost, not knowing what to do, feeling out of place. And as people want us to believe that we're the second class citizens, we're not second class citizens. We're genteel people, we're royalty, and we've been around here for a while. I know when I met my uncles and they were 100 years old, I was just impressed with the fact that they were still conscious and still learning and still able to talk to me in their right mind about what was going on in our lives. So I didn't guess this stuff, even though I was an orphan. I knew firsthand who I was because my relatives who were still around to tell me were able to walk with me and talk with me and tell me who we were as looking for my grandmother, Lily. I was so glad to find her in the Census Bureau and to find her and her husband there that were married. And they gave all the people in the household and they named some of the cousins that I had a chance to meet. So I knew it was their household. And it named my mother and all of her 6 brothers and sisters. So I know I'm on the right track. They did grow up in the North Carolina area, and their mother was officially from North Carolina. Now, the children might have been had in Canton, Mississippi, but their first grounds that they started on was in North Carolina. Now, I want to say that you got to get very close to your indigenous people and pinpoint where they're from, and then feel like you got to go visit that place. And I know I'm definitely going to Charleston so I can see the African American Heritage Museum and I can learn more about what went on down there in North Carolina. And I want you to know that we will get to the promised land, just like Martin said, but Martin didn't get there. But we will get to the promised land. And we got to continue to keep looking and exploring. And I want to encourage our brother Calloway to keep going because he's done a lot of in-depth work, Mrs. Moon, all these people who are dedicated to this particular effort of congeniality. I'm going to get more into congeniality now that we have the Institute for Congeniality. I'm going to network with some people and make it a lifelong effort to keep connecting. How badly I wanted to be an African because it was so easy. But after I discovered that they really don't want us there, and there's no place called the Health Center that we can go get our records to prove that we were there. Nobody has any of these DNAs. I don't care what you say. There's no health clinic that you can go to or hospital and get your birth certificate proving that you were born there. You can only go to South America on Turtle Island. These are the only places that hold. How did we come about coming here? And did we travel off? We didn't come off the Bering Straits, but did we come from Africa here, or were we already here, docked here, that took us off the ship? Because we know that there was only so many spaces in that ship, and a lot of us was already and mentally, and now maybe over 200 years later, or 400 years later, now we're looking at fighting for the appeal of those cases. Isn't that something? You know, for the Dred Scott case to still be considered after over 150 years to address that. But the main thing we have to know is that we are the world's indigenous people. Like it or not, we are the Aborigines. And I'm so glad that one of our senators pointed that out. And I hope he isn't badly punished for saying that. He said what was right. We are the Aborigines and the indigenous Aborigines, meaning that we were here. And some of the blacks that you find that are on the island with the straight hair is because of the climate that they grew up in and the fact that they had to have moisture, and that's what keeps the hair straight. Now, I want to say for the record that I've said a mouthful today, but I'm going to keep on my journey and keep looking for the missing links of the matriarchic side of my mother's family. Lizzie, Lily, I am actually out to find where your family initiated from and how we came to be. Because we must look at our matriarchic side with our mother's side and get a better understanding of who we were. And as we do this, I'm urging each and every one of you African Americans, don't just call yourself African American, become an indigenous Aborigines and start searching for your long lost family members who had the knapsack and the cotton bag on their shoulder here in this North America, not over in Africa. If they have something to give to us, we'll take it gracefully. But we're going to spend our time exploring here. And as we make mistakes and think that it'll be so easy to call ourselves Africans, than it would to go researching here. But we got to turn over every rock and every brick and look here and get all kinds of funding to do our research to find out how do we find our heritage here? How do we find our lost parents that were here in this turtle come in and for us to do the research and put it on file like a library, like a resource center, so that if anyone needs those documents, they can come and make copies of them. So we will be working on that Indigious Congeniality Center to do the research to find who we are and to help pinpoint when did we actually start out here in Turtle Island and who were our ancestors, and can we find them on the Dow's list or the Freedmen's list, or can we go to the census and find them? The 2020 census will be coming out soon. That's one of the places that we can start looking. So let's gather together and support one another. And please do support the work that I'm doing, working with the indigenous Aboriginal people. Thank you so much. And do have a great day and happy Black History Month. We have a few more days left, and let's not forget that we can go on to research and do work to find out just who we are. And most of all, let's keep praying for those lawyers in court that the case will be overturned and that we will be justified and compensated for the loss of that treaty. And so as we find out that the treaty was meant for us to be compensated, let us be mindful of the fact that God is the one that can give promotion, and he is the one that will extenuate that funds to us expediently. And I say, oh, Davo and Baba Booey to you, y'all. Thank you so much for listening to me as I give you history over looking for my indigenous family members. Thank you.